Halito OCO Hinch J. Hello, I am David Wilson, a member of the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma, and I serve as the assistant to the bishop for the Oklahoma Indian Missionary Conference. I am so pleased to be a part of this series on Shattering the Stained Glass Window. One of the many painful events in the life of indigenous peoples around the world right now is the discovery and conversations on Indian boarding schools. The federal government, in collaboration with many denominations, including Methodists, began its Indian boarding school initiative around 1819. The goal was to erase indigenous cultures through forced assimilation. That included forcing indigenous persons to become Christian, speak English only, and forget their tribal languages, forget our cultures given to us by Creator God. Between 1819 and 1969, the federal government operated more than 400 boarding schools around the country, provided support for more than 1,000 others, according to a recent investigation. It also counted 53 schools with marked and unmarked burial sites of children, a number it says will likely increase as the investigation continues. Oklahoma had 83 Indian boarding schools, according to the National Native American Boarding School Coalition, many of them operated by the eastern tribes that were relocated to what is now Oklahoma. The church is not without fault, as most denominations operated boarding schools, including the Methodist Church. On July 9th, Deb Haaland, the U.S. Secretary of the Interior and a member of the Laguna Pueblo, visited the Riverside Indian School in Anadarko, Oklahoma. This visit was the first of a year-long tour to hear the painful stories of the survivors of those who attended boarding schools. Her visit came on the heels of a national report that she ordered on the Indian boarding schools. As I watched local news stories on her visit, I saw a person from our OMC churches sharing the difficult stories. The stories included the teachers forcing them to speak English. They talked through tears about the corporal punishment they received when speaking the language. They talked about living with that experience throughout their lives. They were the most difficult stories to hear. Today, the Riverside Indian School still functions as a native boarding school, but with oversight by the tribes in that area. They now teach native languages, art, culture, and more. The instructors and leadership are indigenous persons, and the same is true for the other tribal boarding schools in the state. The irony is that schools are now frantically teaching the languages and tribal cultures that were almost forced out of those young persons long ago. The schools did partially accomplish what they set out to do, eradicate language. According to the Indigenous Language Institute, there once were more than 300 indigenous languages spoken in the United States, and today approximately 175 remain. They also estimate that without restoration efforts, there'll be at most 20 still spoken in 2050. I share these difficult stories of our past not to bring shame upon people, but to educate folks on our past that brings so many struggles today for indigenous peoples. We need to acknowledge the role of the church and the pain inflicted upon indigenous persons. Our OMC churches are a place to provide the authentic gospel of Christ and a place of community and relationship. They are very important to many and help to provide healing. They are a safe haven for our people to worship in our language and through our songs. Creator God leads us on a journey of reclamation and hope, and we could do nothing without that hope. Earlier this year, I was invited to share aspects of Native life with the Just Action team at McFarland United Methodist Church in Norman, Oklahoma. I had a great time of sharing, including a bit of this history of boarding schools. They asked great questions and were inquisitive. The work is around addressing racial injustice. I had great conversations that night and I left feeling so good. I felt good knowing there are individuals and groups in our churches that want to right a wrong. There are many who care and want to learn and want to grow. There are so many that want to help. Today, the Just Action team continues that great work of listening and exploring issues with indigenous persons. I am so thankful for them. That is what we can all do. We can listen to these painful stories and learn from the past. We can be allies with Native American communities to see what we can do together to provide hope for our futures. We can hold out for hope, trusting in the one who can mend all things. Isaiah 40:31 reads, "But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary, and they will walk and not be faint." Thank you, and God bless.